Hey, appraisers, we just had something change. So on January the 18th, 2023, there was an announcement. They said change is coming. The change was effective April the 18th, 2023. April the 18th, 2023, about a week ago. You were supposed to start doing new things. Possibly. April the 18th, things of change became a requirement. Are you adhering to those changes? Are you aware of those changes? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about? Come on back and let's have a conversation about it. Hi, this is Bryan. You're listening to the Appraisal Update Podcast, brought to you by the very fine folks over at Appraiser eLearning. You need some education? Check us out at appraiserelearning.com. Hey, before we go any further, I want to give a special shout out to LIA Insurance. We've got a new sponsor. Thank you very much for your sponsorship. LIA Administrators and Insurance Services. Check them out. All right, what was I talking about? Change. Well, maybe it affects you, maybe it doesn't. If you are an FHA appraiser, hello, listen up. If you're an FHA appraiser, changes just occurred. Are you aware of the changes? Have you started adhering to the new minimum requirements of FHA policy that became effective April the 18th? Do you know what those changes are? Well, we recommend that you inform yourself, educate yourself, take a little bit of time to make sure you're adhering to the policy changes that took place April the 18th. I'll give you an example. You have never been required to say the subject property meets minimum HUD requirements. Now, I know some of your clients and some of the AMCs out there require such a statement, but you've never been required to say that. The property has to meet MPRs or MPS. So MPR stands for minimum property requirements. MPS stands for minimum property standards. That's for new construction, right? And all properties have to be safe, sound, secure, and they have to meet MPR or MPS, period. But you haven't had an obligation to say the subject property meets minimum property requirements. You don't have to say that. In fact, if I'm appraising something as is and I haven't required an inspection and I haven't required any repairs, doesn't it kind of go without saying that it meets MPRs or MPS? Should, yeah. And I know some of your clients require you to make such a statement. You could have pushed back and not done it because it's not a requirement until now. That's one of the changes, okay? And we'll show you the language in just a second. But that's one of the changes that you as the appraiser need to be aware of. All right? So I'll show you that reference in the handbook. You know, I was talking to a newer appraiser recently, and she said, you know, people call me and ask me for stuff, and I'm like, just pull up the handbook. You'll find it right there, and it's a little frustrating. I said, well, you know, instead of getting frustrated by that, think of it from a perspective of they respect your opinion. They kind of look up to you a little bit. They admire you, and they value your opinion. She said, that's a good way to look at it. But I understand her frustration because, you know, a lot of this stuff is at your fingertips. It just takes you a little bit of time to pull this stuff up. And if you're having a debate with someone, go to the authoritative source. It doesn't matter what somebody says on Facebook. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what a student manual says. Go to the authoritative source. If you're having a debate or discussion or plain out argument about USPAP, go to USPAP. You'll probably find the answer. If you're having the same discussion about Fannie Mae, go to fanniemae.com. You'll probably find your answer in the selling guide under the appraisal section. It's under underwriting the property. If your debate or conversation or argument is about FHA, what does FHA require? Go to HUD.gov, go to the 4000.1, download the one that is effective April 18th. That's your authoritative source. Now, there's also another book, and I recommend you check it out. It's the Appraisal Report and Data Delivery Guide and the glossary. There's a lot of information there. But let me show you how to get that. I've done this once before, or probably a couple of times before, but I'll do it again. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to pull up the HUD website. Let's just navigate it just a little bit, and then I'll show you what it says. I'll also show you a couple of other areas that is a hot topic of debate and commonly argued about. So I'll show you 2 or 3 things in here. John and I had a great discussion 2 weeks ago in Clubhouse. If you jump over to Clubhouse, you can listen to the replay, if you will. We had a great discussion about some of the changes in FHA. And then finally, we offer a class, or you can take a class from somebody else, but we recommend you take a class to be sure you're in the know when it comes to FHA policy. You know, I was recently teaching a class down in Texas for the Association of Texas Appraisers, and I said, talking about testing the electrical outlets. And, you know, FHA requires that you test inside and outside the home and the garage. Receptacles, light switches. And one of the appraisers out there said, no, it's one or the other. And so I pulled up the policy handbook, pulled it up and said, no, it says and. Switches, receptacles, right? It doesn't say or, it says and. So let's go to the authoritative source real quick and navigate that around a little bit. You can kind of see what I'm talking about. And for those that are listening, I'll try and walk you through this verbally. Again, if you're listening and you want to watch, keep in mind you can go to our YouTube channel. Just pull up YouTube, search Appraiser eLearning, and all of our podcasts now are showing up on our YouTube channel. So you can kind of follow along via video. And I'm going to kind of put this on the screen here now, and you can see me navigate this. So if you're listening, I will try and walk you through orally, since this is a podcast. So if you go to HUD.gov, all right, HUD.gov, you can still put the www in there if you want to, www.hud.gov, but you don't have to put the W's in there. And this is the HUD website. You see it right in front of you. Well, if you go to program offices, so again, I went to HUD.gov, the main website appeared, and up at the very top, there's some tabs. The second one says program offices. So I want you to click program offices, and then there's lots of words on this screen, but the center column, 1, 2, 3, 4 down, is a tab that says housing. So I want you to click housing. When you come to the housing page, the second tab that you have an option for is called single family. And since we're talking about single family policy, we're going to click on single family home. And from this page, and this looks a little different than it used to, you're going to scroll down just a little bit. And then the second column, the second option or second word is appraiser. So if you click on that, that's going to bring you to the roster appraiser page. There we go. Had to double click. And there's a lot of information on this page. I've talked about this many times. I talk about this in my FHA class. You can check your roster status here. If you're not an FHA appraiser, why aren't you? if you're, listen, let me just pause here for a minute. If you're not an FHA appraiser, why not? I mean, FHA cares about safe, sound, and secure. Safety, security, and soundness. Guess what? Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac does too. If you're appraising something and you feel that there is a safety-related issue, Well, that needs to be brought up on a conventional loan. And maybe there's a couple of different things you have to do during the observation or the appraisal inspection, if you want to call it that. For FHA, it's not that much more difficult than doing a conventional transaction. So if you're not doing FHA, I highly encourage you to think about doing FHA. And you can click right here on the eligibility requirements to see what's required of you to be eligible to do FHA appraising. And then right below that is the applicant instructions. I strongly encourage you to get information on that and see if it's a good fit for you. I think you will enjoy it. In fact, I've been told that there are some clients that will not put you on their approved appraiser panel unless you have your FHA credential. So that means you're potentially losing out on conventional work because you're not on the lender selection roster for FHA. So it's something to think about, right? Renew your credentials. There's a lot of information here. Here is some FHA events and training. I think I saw the other day they were having one, I want to say in Boston, maybe? Look right here. FHA application workshop, in-person FHA underwriting. Oh, that's in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Maybe I should go to that one. Here's condominium approval. Here is in-person FHA appraiser and appraisal training. This is new, guys. Look at this. On May 15th, FHA appraiser and appraisal training in San Juan. Gosh, maybe I need to check my calendar for May 15th. That'd be a fun one, wouldn't it? I recommend you attend the FHA appraiser and appraisal training because keep in mind they have workshops and training that is more than just for appraising. It's for underwriters and different things. So you probably are going to be interested in the one that is for appraisers, right? Over here on the right, you can see FHA info emails, right? And here's a way to subscribe to receive FHA information. So how are you in the know when FHA makes a change? Are you getting mortgagee letters, or is your client notifying you? Are you checking this website on a regular basis? Or do you just wait until somebody says, hey, you did something wrong, you need to fix it? Well, if you subscribe to receive the FHA info, then you'll be in the know. You'll get emails quite often, and it will let you know if policy changes. Now, you're going to get more than just appraisal-related emails. You're going to get a whole host of emails. But it doesn't take you very long to look and see if there's anything relative to appraiser news and make a decision whether or not you want to, download that or read it or print it out or however you want to handle that. All right, I mentioned a moment ago the Appraisal Report and Data Delivery Guide, and it's right here, and it is an important guide. To me, it's just as important as the 4000.1. I highly encourage you to spend some time on that one. And also the FHA Single Family Housing Policy Handbook Glossary. That's also an important document. But what we want to do is look at the 4001. Now, I like the PDF version because it's searchable. I'll show you how that works in a minute. Here is an online version if you'd rather have that. But I typically click on this PDF because it's searchable, and I'll show you this in a minute. So we're going to come down. These are various handbooks. If you see this one, there's the 4001. Here's the online version, and then your next option is the PDF. See PDF, and you can see the references here. So again, I told you it changed on. It was announced on January the 18th with an effective date of April the 18th. So these changes became effective April the 18th, 2023. And you're going to click right here. There's a tab for my listeners that says Policy Handbook. Now, this is FHA policy, period. Doesn't matter what anybody tells you. This is their current policy. So this is why I like to go to the authoritative source. Now, I'm going to show you something real quickly here. If you have a laptop, you want to hit Control F. On a Mac, which is what I'm on right now, and I'm not a big Mac user, so bear with me, you hit Command F. And you probably saw this little box appear, right? I'm going to get rid of the reference I had in there. Command F, all right? And I'm going to just simply type MPR and hit Enter. Now, what this is doing, you see this little counter advancing. There's 907 references to MPR, right? And you can see MPR is in the word improved. That's not what I'm looking for. But the reason I'm searching is you can see right here, this publication, the handbook in and of itself is 1,524 pages. It's over a 1,500 page document. Do you want to read all that? Because I don't. So I typed in MPRs and I'm just advancing through this, right? You can see me click this and it's just running kind of through the references throughout the entire 1,500 page document with MPR, right? And I'm just kind of running through this a little bit and I'm trying to get to a little section here. Now I'm in FHA Appraiser roster. You can see that. And I'm going to go just a couple more clicks and hopefully I'll find what I'm looking for. You can see you can navigate this and search it a lot quicker than trying to read every page of the book, right? So that's why I put this reference in there. And the more descriptive you put, the quicker you'll find your answer, right? Like if you were looking for attic information, you could just type the word attic in and do a search and it'll take you right to every reference that we have for the word. Now you see all those highlights. Those highlights mean this was changed data, right? This is all new information or changed information, all right? But yeah, it would take you to the exact reference of attic, all the requirements there. So I'm going to go just a few more here. So on page 573, it talks about compliance with FHA guidelines and USPAP. And you can see this is April 18th, 2023. So this is when it became effective, right? It says the appraiser must observe, analyze, and report whether the property meets HUD's property acceptability criteria, including minimum property requirements, MPR, and minimum property standards, MPS. And it talks about what an MPR is, right? Refers to the general requirement that all homes insured by FHA be safe, sound, and secure. And here we are for MPS for new construction. But I want you to look right here, right above this highlighted part, right? Every property must be safe, sound, and secure so that the mortgagee, who's the mortgagee? The lender, can determine eligibility. The appraiser must note every instance where the property is not safe, sound, and secure and does not comply with HUD, MPR, or MPS. This is new. Or they must clearly state when no deficiencies with HUD property acceptability criteria have been observed or are known. So now you have the obligation that if you're going to appraise something as is for FHA, you're going to have to make a statement. You must clearly state when no deficiencies with HUD's property acceptability criteria have been observed or are known. And that's how I'm going to type it out. I'm not going to say the property meets minimum HUD requirement. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say that there are no observed or known deficiencies with regard to the HUD property acceptability criteria. Or start here. No deficiencies with HUD property acceptability criteria have been observed or are known. Period. And now you're in compliance. This is HUD policy, effective April 18th. So that's what I'm going to start doing. In just a minute, I want to talk to you a little bit about a confusing topic, all right? And the confusing topic is regarding repair inspections and regarding a final inspection for new construction. What form do you use? Is it the 1004D across the board? This has been a hot debated topic, and we're going to talk about it in just a second. I mentioned earlier we have a new sponsor, LIA Administrators and Insurance, and we'd like to thank them once again. You know, since 1978, LIA Administrators and Insurance has been offering E&O insurance to valuation professionals. LIA applies superior customer service, exceptional liability education, and unparalleled claim defense to serve over 10,000 real estate professionals nationwide. They also offer commercial bonds, general liability, cyber liability, and more. Visit liability.com to learn more about how LIA can help protect your business. Again, thank you, LIA, for your sponsorship of the Appraisal Update podcast. We certainly appreciate your support. So, what was I talking about with regard to what form do you use? Well, let's go back to the authoritative source here. And what I'm going to do this time is come up in this little box and type 1004D. And let's just see if that's the form you use. I'm going to search that. There's only a couple of references here, so it's going to be a much quicker search. And I'm going to keep going until I come to this box. Found it. See how quick that was? That was a lot quicker. Now I'm on page 601 of a 1,500-page document. So I got there with just a couple clicks. So let's look at this little matrix, right? And to reference, 601 is of the PDF. It's actually page 575 of the HUD handbook. This is your reference. Page 575 of the HUD handbook, 4000.1, revised January 18th, effective April 18th, right? And so if we look at this matrix right here, I'm going to come down to an update of an appraisal. Well, that would be a 1004D. And then I want to come down here to compliance or final inspection for existing property. Compliance or final inspection for existing property, 1004D. Okay, so that's the form you use. But what about a final inspection for a new construction? Well, that's right above that. Look right here, compliance or final inspection for new construction or manufactured housing, and that's the HUD form 92051, compliance inspection report. There it is, guys. So you can debate it all you want to. You can get on social media and have somebody tell you, no, it's a 1004D on everything. On page 575, for my listeners, go to HUD.gov, download the most recently revised 4000.1, go to page 575, and you're going to see what we're looking at together for all my YouTube people watching, right? On page 575, it says compliance or final inspection for new construction or manufactured. The required reporting form is the HUD 92051 compliance inspection report. That's it. So it doesn't matter if you have a client wanting something different. It doesn't matter if you have a colleague telling you, no, you use a 1004D. They're wrong. This is the HUD policy. And I highly recommend you get on the website, you download this document, and you get to know it. You get comfortable with it. It is a great resource. Bracketing. Let's talk about bracketing real quick, and then we're going to end this thing. I'm giving you almost the entire FHA course in the podcast. No, I'm not. But if we go to bracketing, right? So now I'm going to type in bracketing, and I'm going to hit enter. And look, there's only one. There's 4 references, but this is really what I want right here. And I'm going to blow this up just a little bit so you can see it a little better. I'm going to blow it up a lot, in fact. All right. So here we go. If we look at bracketing, because a lot of people think, oh, got to bracket everything, right? Bracketing refers to selecting comparable properties with features that are superior to or inferior to the subject property. Now, I did a little video, so you guys need to continue to watch all our social media outlets because it was on there. I was driving around and I showed some houses in the neighborhood I grew up in. And the most prominent house back in those days was the Gulfstream house. It's 1,595 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, kind of an L-shaped design, the Gulfstream. They built a bunch of them. So imagine you're appraising a Gulfstream today and you search MLS and there's been 12 Gulfstream houses to sell over the last 12 months. A dozen sales, a dozen comps. It's the same model. It's the same house. Maybe there's different colors. Maybe something's had an addition. Maybe they've, added a workshop out back or put an in-ground pool in. But the original structure is the same as your subject property, 1,595 square feet. You got 12 of them. Why in the world would you ignore some of those and say, no, I got to have one bigger. I got to have one smaller. I got to bracket this sucker. No, you don't. Why would you bracket when you have 12 houses exactly the same? This is a dream come true. You have 10, 11, 12 houses that are all the exact same size as your subject property. Why would you ever consider bracketing GLA? I would argue that it was highly inappropriate to do that. Let's look at what the policy says. So if we come back here, we know what the definition is. I just read it. Refers to selecting comps with properties that are superior or inferior to the subject features. But let's look what it says under required analysis and reporting. In analyzing the comparable pools to determine the best comparable sales to display and compare in the sales comparison grid, the appraiser must use bracketing when possible and appropriate. Guys, this is key. When possible and appropriate. It's not really appropriate to get a bigger house and a smaller house than your subject property when you have a bunch of houses exactly like your subject property. That'd be highly inappropriate. And then they put this when possible in here as well. Maybe you're out in the county and you're appraising the biggest house in the county. There's not one bigger. It's not possible to bracket in that scenario. So just explain what you did. And in this case, possibly what you weren't able to do. I wasn't able to find a house bigger than my subject property. The one I'm appraising is the biggest house around. It's the biggest one in the entire county. Couldn't find one bigger, right? It wasn't possible. So take off all those myths. Take off the preconceived notion. Go to the authoritative source. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're finding work. I know a lot of us, including me, the work is down. It's been down substantially. I hope you're finding new sources of revenue and income, maybe new clients. Maybe you're kicking over some stones and finding some new clients. Sometimes a bad thing can be a really good opportunity. I know someone that got fired one time. They worked for someone for many, many years, and they got fired. And I said, sometimes good decisions get forced upon you. That person now has the job that they've wanted their entire life. They're making more money than they ever have. They're working less, and they're doing very, very well. And had they not lost that prior job, they'd probably still be there, miserable, right? So look forward. On the other side of a breakdown is a breakthrough. We're all going to get there at some point. Just hang in there. You've been listening to the Appraisal Update Podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Reynolds. Thanks again to our sponsor, LIA Administrators and Insurance. We appreciate your support. Until next time, happy appraising.
The Appraisal Update Podcast is brought to you by Appraiser eLearning.